It's going up forever, Law. Welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live, where your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, color breaking news, culture, medic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state, and make no mistake, that's exactly what we are living through these days. It's one of those episodes that we're going to cover just that. Breaking news: Federal Reserve to expand oversight of crypto-related activities in banks. So the people that have the most to lose if Bitcoin succeeds are, apparently expanding their oversight. No congressional approval, of course, which I find absolutely fascinating. And of course, this is happening a couple weeks after the Federal Reserve launched the American version of the central bank digital currency, which is called the Fed now. And of course, they're saying that that's not what it is. But we all know that's what it is. Based on the administration's language, the U.S. Treasury wrote a paper at the end of last year called The Future of Money and Payments. And in that paper, in the eyes of the current U.S. government, the current administration, future of money and payments, stablecoins, payment platforms. Bitcoin is not mentioned there, right? But you know what is mentioned there? Central bank digital currencies, right? So it's just, of course, they don't have the popular support, but there's stuff happening in the background. And we had Caitlin Long on Simply Bitcoin IRL the other day, and she said it herself. She said the reason that her bank was denied the federal banking charter, which would make her competitive with the rest of the US banking industry, was an order direct from the White House, right? So it's not my words, that's Caitlin Long's words herself. So very interesting how this is playing out. And we have a very special guest today, and someone I consider a brother as well. We have the one and only, the Svetsky. How you doing, man? How's life? All right, it seems like Svetsky has a little bit of some technical difficulties. I'll bring up Opti in the meantime. Svetsky, seems like your mic is muted. How you doing, Opti?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, dude. And this intro gets me hyped. The intro is so lit. Shouts out the Daft. It's clutch. It's clutch. But yeah, man, exciting stuff to see. And hopefully we get Svetsky in here so that we can talk with him. We were literally just talking with him right backstage. So, troubleshooting live. But hey, we do this live, as Sessions always says. And it's good to be here, man. I'm excited to see Nico Jones break this all down, and then we will rant about it. So this is going to be a good one. It's going to be a good good
episode. All right, guys, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the numbers. We got a lot to talk about today.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on stamp. All right, guys, if you don't want to put yourself in this very uncomfortable position, we're going to have to explain to your grandchildren why you lost your generational wealth because you decided to store your Bitcoin wallet backup seed words on paper. Make sure to store them on titanium, one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, and people that we recommend are Stamp Seed. So scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to their website. And of course, you can use the promo code SIMPLY to get a 15% discount, anything on their store. Anyways, everybody, no more delay. Let's get to this video. Shout out also to, this is Peter McCormack. Peter McCormack's podcast, What Bitcoin Did. Great podcast, in my opinion. And a buddy of mine on there, American Hodl. American Hodl has some of the best takes always. And let's hear what he has to say. But let's see if we have Svetsky back. Svetsky, can you hear me? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. So seems like we're still trying to get Svetsky back, but the show must go on. Opti, let's check out this clip while we try to get Svetsky back.
The slave system that we live in today, the fiat system, what it does is it extracts wealth from the future, from the unborn. Okay? They are literally born into the matrix, into bondage, and we are stealing from them. And then we're, anticipating that technology or deflation is going to solve this problem that we created by stealing from the future, but it's a catch-22 because if no one builds the future, then there's not going to be a beautiful future for them to inherit, and all they're going to inherit is debt. So the fiat system is extracting wealth from the unborn. And the big idea in Bitcoin, to me, and like I really do get emotional when I think about this, is that we are gifting, wealth to the future, which is, in my opinion, like the blockchain of humanity. And anytime you don't have that situation where you're gifting more than you were given, you've thrown an error. And basically, like, the chain is being reorged, right? Like, that's like the big idea that's going on here to me, is that we're reorging the chain back to what we had before we lost.
Beautiful, beautiful from American Hodl. Literally, it was very poetic, and I agree. Like, there is a bit of emotion there. We've been kind of living in this society where that hasn't been the case for so long, and people have been brainwashed to somehow think the money must come from the government. And I don't know, Opti, it kind of sounded like American Hodl said Bitcoin or slavery. That's kind of like what it sounded like. Anyways, I want to welcome Svetsky on the show. Svetsky, how you doing, brother? I feel like that clip is like a perfect alley-oop to you, man. I feel like you've been writing about this. You've been talking about this specific subject for so long. And what is fiat truly this slavery? Is it slavery for the unborn, for people that haven't even come out of the womb yet? What's your take on that?
How spicy am I allowed to be?
It is YouTube after all. So
it is YouTube.
All right. All right. Well, first of all, it's good to be back. I think what I'd like to say is that I'm kind of getting beyond all the complaining about slavery and all this sort of stuff kind of viewpoint with Bitcoin. I think those arguments have been made enough times now, and I'm a little bit tired of it. It's like, slavery, yeah, whatever. I think what's more important is that Bitcoin is kind of building on this theme at the moment. I'm going to do a bunch of writing on it later in the year, but this Bitcoin is vitalist money. So kind of in the Nietzschean sense of Bitcoin is better money because it makes for a game in which better people win. And more than just helping the bottom people and slavery and all this sort of stuff, which is, a good narrative, I'm starting to become more interested in what does Bitcoin do for those who want to excel, for those do something big in life, those who want to leave a legacy, the architecture of the domes and the cathedrals and stuff like that. Those people didn't really care about all that stuff. What they cared about was impacting civilization. And I think I'm starting to ask the next question is beyond just slavery, like what does help us and that's where I think.
Yeah, and absolutely, I do agree with that because you had these beautiful architecture, right? You see this in Europe. You see the Notre Dame, for example, like these projects, these buildings that took hundreds of years to make. Like the people that first started building them were long dead after they were completed, and it's that like long-term type of thinking. I agree, and you've seen fiat penetrate into architecture. You've seen it, like not only architecture, just goods and everything. Everything, whether it's food, medicine, buildings, anything. Like the quality just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I think a lot of people, you know, they blame capitalism is one of the things that I've heard. They blame, you know, the economic model. They blame everything and anything, but the fact that the society is built upon this corrupt money, and that is literally the root cause out of anything. Svetsky, you want to follow that up?
Yeah, well, it's the root functional cause, but you know, I think I've started to believe that there's a deeper values cause that sits behind it, which is when you want to optimize civilization for things like equality and raising the common man up and doing all of that sort of stuff, what you end up doing is you optimize civilization for the lowest common denominator. And to do that, you know, stuff like printing money seems to make a lot of sense because, you know, you can distribute wealth to the have-nots, right? Whereas, you know, what we're talking about here is like, you know, those monuments that, you know, greatness was built by people who could think long-term. Now, a function of being able to think long-term is having a lower time preference, and you can't really have a low time preference if you can't save. So these things are, you know, inextricably linked. But it's not about like, I think what I want to plant in the psyche of Bitcoiners now is to, you know, we've done a lot of thinking. We've looked at the ground a lot. You know, we've looked at, oh, look at where fiat got us. Everything sucks. You know, it's all crap. It's slavery. This. I want us to raise our gaze up now higher and say, okay, what sort of greatness, what sort of excellence, what sort of monuments can we build? And that is less about, yeah, it's less about making things more affordable. Like, so what fiat does is it attempts to make fiat cheapens everything, right? That's why you have cheap architecture, cheap plastic toys, cheap fucking consumerism. It's like everything's cheap. So everything drops in quality, but it becomes more equal because now everybody has the same plastic crap, you know, the same, you know, there's a great meme of like the, how cars used to be super colorful. And now we've got like 3 colors in our cars. We've got black, white, and red, basically. And that's it. So everything is becoming standardized. Everything is becoming cheap. Everything is becoming common. Everything is becoming equal. And that's sort of one of the effects that fiat has. Whereas, you know, you go the other direction, you know, you start to build hierarchy, you start to optimize for excellence, you start to create differentials. And yeah, this is the question I'm beginning to ask, and I want to start exploring this year and next in some of my writing.
Yeah, there's you know, there's so many implications to a world built on a Bitcoin standard, and I think that you know, we're just hitting the very tip of the iceberg, so to speak. It's very, very exciting. Anyways, Opti, for the sake of time, let's go straight into the news. But before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to the biggest Bitcoin conference on the face of the earth, Bitcoin 2024. It's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, July 25th through the 27th. You can get a GA ticket right now for $349, an industry pass for $849. If you're trying to get a job in the industry, this is the one I recommend. And a whale pass for $4,749. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get an even bigger discount on the already discounted tickets. Get your tickets to Bitcoin 2024 today. All right, guys, news.
The Daily News.
All right, guys, I also want to give a shout out to our other sponsor, the Orange Pill app. They are building the social layer for Bitcoin. The Bitcoin circular economy is coming, and this is where it starts. Within real-life connections, find other Bitcoiners who live close to you, find plebs while you're traveling, or find nearby Bitcoin events. Plus, Orange Pill app recently enabled Zaps. You can zap your friends and zap events to help with the cost to organize your next Bitcoin meetup. Scan the QR code on your screen right now, and if you sign up, you will get 10,000 sats. And Opti and I appreciate all the love and messages that we're getting via the Orange Pill app. We appreciate y'all. Anyways, everybody, let's get to the breaking news of today. This is a theme and concept that we've brought up in the past, which is the concept that the regulators, the people that are tasked in so-called regulating Bitcoin, even though we know that's not possible, are also the people that have the most to lose if Bitcoin succeeds, right? We know how the current administration has reacted to the Bitcoin industry, you know, the so-called Operation Choke Point 2.0. And I suspect is a continuation of that. And again, like I said in the very beginning, this is happening 2 or 3 weeks after they launched the American version of the CBDC, which is called the Fed Now. Anyways, so the name of the article is Federal Reserve to Expand Oversight Over Bitcoin and Shitcoin Related Activities at Banks. The Federal Reserve says it will expand how it oversees the crypto activities of U.S. regulated banks. The move by the U.S. Central Bank falls under, quote, Novel Activity Supervision Program the Federal Reserve introduced on Tuesday. And that's interesting because that allows them to circumvent legislation, right? Because it's like, oh, no, this was already in the books. This is under Novel Activity Supervision Program, right? And then interesting because Custodia was denied the federal banking charter. So like, what are those crypto banks that they're referring to? It also covers applications of distributed ledger technology that have the, quote, potential for significant impact on the financial system. According to a published outline of the program's aims, regulators will, quote, enhance the supervision of novel activities, such as, quote, crypto asset custody, crypto collateralization lending, facilitated crypto asset trading, and engaging in stablecoin / dollar token issuance or distribution, right? So it looks like they're going after the stablecoins. And again, I didn't know that the Federal Reserve was the SEC. Like, it's just very interesting. The program will also focus on distributed ledger technology and other, quote, technology-driven partnerships with non-banks to deliver financial services to customers. The program is designed to ensure, the Federal Reserve said in documents Tuesday, that state member banks will, quote, place controls to conduct the activity in a safe and sound manner. But who determines what is a safe and sound manner? The government? You mean this is the same government? Well, like in the US, you know, they've frozen accounts, but I'm going to bring up the Canadian truckers protest, right? They were freezing accounts to people that were donating money to the truckers. Like, it's just like the people that are tasked with regulating Bitcoin are also the people that have the most to lose when Bitcoin succeeds. And then this reminds me of a passage from the Sovereign Individual, and then I want to get Svetsky's thoughts. So the passage, and I've read this to you guys many times, and I think it's very applicable to what is happening here, is new technologies will allow the holders of wealth to bypass the national monopolies that have issued and regulated money in the modern period. Their importance for controlling the world's wealth will be transcended by mathematical algorithms that have no physical existence. In the new millennium, cyber money controlled by private markets will supersede fiat money issued by governments. Goes on to say, lacking their accustomed scope to tax, inflate, governments, even in traditionally civil countries, will turn nasty. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, and disruption. Arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sabotage useful technologies, and worse. And I think that's exactly what we're witnessing right now. I didn't know that the Federal Reserve had the mandate, had the task to, regulate this entire industry. And I think it's because it fears it. Anyways, that's my take, Svetsky. My gut tells me I think you might agree with me on this one. I don't know. What do you think?
Yes. So let's pull on the thread that we were talking about earlier about sort of greatness and excellence, right? So people history is some sort of progressive line, maybe with some peaks and troughs along the way, right? And the other argument for history that it is more cyclical in nature, and books like The Sovereign Individual make the case for that. And what you generally get in periods of the cycle, the classic weak men create bad time stage of the cycle, is that instead of, once again, what we mentioned earlier, instead of optimizing for greatness or optimizing for quality and excellence, society starts to optimize for equality and average, and all of these sort of lower needs on the hierarchy. And what happens is those who end up in charge are actually of a more, how can I say, parasitical lower class. They're not noble in the sense that they want to compete because they're better. They want to cheat in order to win. So the Federal Reserve can't compete with Bitcoin because it's just inferior. Like I saw a meme the other day, something about like, Satoshi wrote 30,000 lines of code and he can bank, 7.9 billion people. Whereas, you've got all of this other crap to, can't bank, more than 2 billion people or whatever it was, some sort of comparison there, right? So Bitcoin is superior. So how does an inferior competitor fight against Bitcoin? Well, it performs regulation, or tries to control the board, right? So it can't beat the opponent in a game of chess. So what it does is it just like violates the rules. It's like, oh, you know what? Like my pieces are all now queens, and I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. The problem with that is obviously over multiple iterations, the game breaks down, and the idiot who's continually cheating, not only do they basically create inferior progeny, like the entire infrastructure that they build ends up being filled with the mediocre, the people who can't actually compete because they're not good, they're not better, they're not stronger, they're not smarter, they're basically the midwits. The institution or the organization of mediocrity itself caves in on itself. So it's kind of like it defeats itself in trying to preserve itself. And that's fundamentally what we're going to see with with Bitcoin versus Fed. It's just we're just going to have to go through the mess of it, because unfortunately these things occur over a time span that is generally longer than what individuals are alive for.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Right? It's it's a whole rethinking of the system, and I think that fundamentally, I agree that they're scared. They know they can't compete, so they have to rely on these means, on these mechanisms. But I just don't think it will be successful in the long run. I think Bitcoin's incentives are going to rule the day here. Anyways, Opti, I want to get your take before we move on to the culture to focus on what Svetsky's working on these days.
Yeah, I mean, that article and what the Fed is trying to do just seems like a lot of buzzwords to me. Like that little whatever they're trying to regulate was just like a bunch of buzzwords. And it really just reminds me that regulators and bureaucrats and government officials are trying to control something that they don't understand. They're fundamentally just using words that they think is like a catch-all net. And, hey, man, like these people are here to protect you, man. The very people that are here to protect you are the people that you need to be protected from. So like this makes all the kind of sense in the world. And this is why we are Bitcoiners, and this is why we've opted out and we don't ask for their permission, because Bitcoin on the one hand is legal. It's there's nothing to protect us from. It's literally software. It's permissionless and you don't need their permission. So as much as this is them trying to pretend and portray themselves and project themselves as like we are the adults in the room, they're the very people you need protection from. Like this is why we Bitcoin. This is why Bitcoin was created in the first place. And again, Bitcoin is simply software. And to one of Svetsky's point, shouts out to my boy Brandon, because he always reminds me of this. It's a quote from Plato. Like, if you don't get involved with politics, you'll be ruled by your inferiors. Now, me personally, I'm like apolitical as they come, but I do find the wisdom in this and understanding that the world, like we live in a bubble world right now, and everything is created in such a way to protect the little guy. And it really brings everyone down to a level of just inferiority. And here we are as Bitcoiners, as individualists that want to just build on a money that is no longer built on sand, that is built on a strong foundation, so we can move forward and actually build things that last. I think this is something that has been lost in the modern world, is this superficial plastic society where, like, as a man, like, what are you doing here? As a person, like, what are you doing here? And it's, I want to build on something that can last, that I can pass on, that means something. And I think that's what a lot of Bitcoiners are trying to do. And can't do that on fiat dollars because it's melting ice cubes. And we're seeing the government cope with trying to understand what Bitcoin is, and of course, they're here to protect you guys.
So. I think they know exactly what it is.
I agree, but it's back to what I always say, Nico. It's like the only reason they're able to say this stuff is because they understand that the audience doesn't get it. This is actually
really interesting. So and Opti Fields put that in the chat, and he said Bitcoin obsoletes politics. Now, with that being said, I want to throw that to Svetsky, but Svetsky, we are on YouTube. So do you agree with that statement? Bitcoin obsoletes politics?
I used to. I don't think so anymore. I think politics are always going to exist. I think it just changes the kind of political animal that wins. And I think it's a better political animal that wins. Like I said, it's sort of this orientation around excellence and quality versus equality and average. And like
Yeah.
I would much rather Julius Caesar than a Joe Biden. You know, I'd much rather a Napoleon than a Christine Lagarde. Like that's sort of the orientation that I think Bitcoin sort of moves us toward.
Yeah. It's an interesting rabbit hole. I came from that angle too, where it was like, yes, politics it's no longer going to be relevant and whatnot. But then I soon came to realize, you need someone like Nayib Bukele, right? You need someone that's going to resist these attacks, these misrepresentations from the legacy corporate media and all that stuff. But I think that over time, you're already seeing this in the U.S., right? You have two presidential candidates, one on the Republican side, one on the Democratic side, that are staunchly against central bank digital currencies and pro Bitcoin. So I always say this, statistically, there's a non-zero chance we have a pro Bitcoin president in the White House in 2024. And I think by 2028, the next presidential election, I think it's going to be politically unviable for anyone to run for office that has an anti-Bitcoin stance. And I just think that these central banks, they're in a race against time to kind of roll this out, also hoping that people don't realize what it is that they're actually selling in the first place. So anyways, I think Bitcoin's going to stay winning. Opti, this is your show. Love you, bro. And you guys kill it in the culture. Svetsky, love you, dude. See you later, brother.
Love you, bro. Good to see you, man.
All right, here we go. I thought he was.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today.
All right, let's go. So, Svetsky, you've been off the Twitterverse for a little bit. You have just come back. But before we get into what you're working on, I'd really like to kind of tap into the last conversation that we've kind of been having on the show. And it's kind of, the idea of maybe like rightful rulers or back to a meritocratic society. And I think this is one of these things that really, I don't know, it scares people, I think, because of what the significance of this means. So maybe let's flesh this out a little bit. Remember, we are on YouTube, so don't scare everyone away. Let's try to get some level of understanding here, and then we'll jump into all the stuff you've been working on, because we got a whole list of things over here.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I guess what thread do you want to pull on?
Just this idea of like, what would be the difference between where we are right now and moving towards a more meritocratic society where the best of the best are actually in positions to move society forward?
Yeah, so let me preface this by saying, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've been a pretty strong, went libertarian, became very ANCAP, read everything from Rothbard and everyone like that I could get my hands on, Mises and everything, and really went down the I guess you could say voluntarist and ANCAP, some sort of blend between those two. And in the last year, I've probably I think the last couple of years radicalized a lot of us, and probably most of us who consider ourselves libertarian. The pressure on freedoms and autonomy and all that sort of stuff probably forced us to be more conservative, I guess, if you want to place a political label on it. And we found ourselves probably aligning more with that side of things, as opposed to all the liberal doctrines. But I've started to kind of maybe, I don't want to sound conceited, but like evolve past the purely libertarian position and start to think of, okay, what is actually practical, and what actually happens in the world, and like, do things like power just disappear when you transform the world and have something like Bitcoin exist? And I don't think the answer to that is yes. I think things like power will always exist. Conflict and competition are actually a really good thing. You want, like, life is a thing that kind of exists through us. It flows through us each. And what we're essentially doing is we're all battling, we're all in conflict, we're all climbing, and at times it makes sense for us to collaborate, particularly with those we share values with, or those we share territory with. So you have this, there's a reason why cultures develop. Culture is basically a group of people coming together with a shared set of values, and that sort of shared set of values grows. That's essentially what Bitcoin culture is. It's a bunch of us with a shared set of values, and that has grown. So, I asked myself the question of, like, what does a model on a Bitcoin standard look like? And I wanted to write a book about this a couple of years back. When I wrote that whole Bitcoin is not democratic series, and I kind of threw a couple concepts in there, which I think to this day I probably still generally agree with. Like, I think I concluded on the idea of CEO monarchs basically operating smaller city states, and this is the Citadel's meme basically. But I do think that the only way for those citadels or city states to operate is more on a I guess on a quality or excellence oriented standard, as opposed to a I keep coming back to this, as opposed to an equality and democratically oriented standard. I don't think that's functional. Maybe at a very small scale, but if you want something, to operate at a slightly larger scale, I think you need more structural hierarchy. And history seems to point to that. That also has diseconomies of scale beyond a certain level, but that's kind of where my thinking's evolving. And I don't think I'll do it enough justice by just jabbering on about it. So I think I need to really think this through and write about it. But that would be my answer to your question.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to hear your full fleshed out ideas soon coming out, because I think I've kind of maybe have gone back to originally thinking, like, we are tribal, and I'm starting to learn that maybe there needs to be, or I don't know if there needs to be, but there will inherently be, leaders of the tribe. And it's about how do you choose those leaders in that tribe that I think is the most important aspects of all this. And I think we're all fleshing these ideas out in real time and experimenting and trying to see, how the world does move forward from where we are. And I don't think we have those answers set in stone. But anyways, let's get to some of your other writings, because one of these writings, and we talked about this last time you were on the show, and I want to start here. It's your book or an article. I think it's a book now, The Bushido of Bitcoin. I've been kind of having this same idea, and I kind of been explaining it to friends. It's like, Bitcoiners seem to be like samurai warriors, and we're all working on like a same, like samurai code. There's like a certain understanding that when you meet another Bitcoiner, you're like, oh, you are working off the same first principles as I am, and you view the world the same that I do. And obviously there's like outliers to this, but I kind of gotten to the point where it's like, hey, we might be part of different samurai clans, but we all have this like Bitcoin samurai code where we're like, okay, Bitcoin is the best money. And we move from those first principles of honor, of principle, of being truth oriented. But without me jabbering on, what is the Bushido of Bitcoin, and when can we see this book get released?
Yeah, dude, you kind of covered it pretty well. It's the idea. So Bushido means way of the warrior, basically, and it's a Japanese word. Kind of the closest equivalent in the West is sort of chivalry, but I think the etymological translation is better as way of the warrior, and it's kind of it's not like a 10 commandments or like a constitution. It's kind of like an unwritten code. So the idea was that a samurai would embody a set of virtues, and it wasn't like an explicit, as I said, written down virtues that you would embody, but things like courage, like honor, like respect, like duty, like compassion, like justice, like self-control. Like these virtues would be what was expected of somebody to be considered a samurai. It wasn't just, sure, being born in, feudal Japan would make you a samurai by birth, but to really become a samurai was the pursuit of the embodiment of these virtues. And what's funny is, like, man, in reading this book, dude, I just, like, you look at my Audible and my library, like I was doing like 100 hours a week on like history and historic fiction, and then like Dan Carlin podcasts and all this sort of stuff. I went through from the ancient Greeks to the Macedonians. I did the Persians, the Egyptians, the Romans, the medieval, like the so-called Dark Ages and the Enlightened period and all that sort of stuff. And what's funny is the closer I got to the modern age, the more disillusioned I became with humanity. I was like, Jesus Christ, I feel like we've been going backwards. in like, there's been like a moral decay almost. And one of the last bastions of traditionalist culture was Japan. Japan was the last major region to dismantle feudalism, and the West saw that as a win. But I've sort of come to believe that maybe that wasn't the win that we thought it was. Like we replaced it with something more materialistic, something a lot cheaper than what sort of feudalism had. So in this book, anyway, what I try and do is I try and channel. We go through a bunch of history. We lay out how feudal Japan looked. We then look at the Japanese virtues themselves and sort of what are the most 8 commonly held virtues of Bushido, and then ask the question of, hey, if Bitcoin is going to be essentially the socioeconomic, which is more than likely going to be the case, assuming we win. So I kind of take that as a given. I then ask the question is like, okay, who do we become? Are we going to become Richard Hart degenerates? Are we going to become another parasitic political class? Or are we going to strive for something higher? We're going to become men and women of virtue, people who want to build monuments, people who are in around excellence. And if we want to do that, it's not good enough just to say, oh yeah, Bitcoin fixes this. Oh yeah, low time preference. Oh yeah, I'm eating carnivore and shit like that. There's a bunch of other things that come with it. Now, Bitcoin has a positive effect, but there's a bunch of other stuff we need to do. And I tried to break it down not to just practices, but to principles, or as I said, virtues that you can seek to embody. So then I broke it down to 10 virtues in this book, and I go into the etymology of the words. And I've come to believe that etymology is really, really powerful. When you go look at the root, particularly going back to the Proto-Indo-European roots of words, and you start to find like how the meaning of words, has almost like a subconscious or superconscious archetypal effect on our brains. Like, the word integrity, for example, is derived from the word integer, which means whole. So to be like, when people talk about wholesome, wholesome has a relationship to integrity because those words, their root is actually related. So I go and explore all of that. And then, I start to look at, beyond those 10 virtues and examples and everything that we explore in the virtues, I go into like historical examples of it, like of Alexander the Great, of Caesar, of Napoleon, of all these sort of great figures throughout history and everything that they did. I then go and ask some kind of difficult questions about like, hey, does material affluence actually weaken society? Does it, can we escape the cycles of humanity, the strong men, weak men, hard times, good times, bad times, and all that sort of the cyclical nature of existence? And I've got a whole lot of metaphors in there that in some senses are kind of like biting truths, like, hey, this is the actual reality, but then have some hopeful threads in there of stuff that we can do to be better and to lay better foundations. Then I go into a chapter on praxis, actually. So on practices, like I go deep into rites of passage and how rites of passage helped form and shape particularly men who were fundamentally the shapers of history, what they had to endure in order to go from being boys to men, and how in losing those rites of passage we lost leadership and therefore lost the North Star, and therefore have become more and more morally decayed as we've entered the modern ages. So go through all of that, and then I kind of finish the book with like a call to greatness. So I'm almost done. I'm actually on a third cleanup draft at the moment, but the book is, I'd say 95, 96% done. I just need to get these damn finishing touches. It's a lot longer than the Uncommunist Manifesto. I think that was about 10 or 12,000 words. This one's kind of like 85, 90,000 words. So it's a substantial book. A lot of anyone who likes like history, tough questions, like the meaning of words, like philosophy, psychology, all of these sort of like deeper things. I think is really going to enjoy this. It's not another Bitcoin book. That's all I can say. It's not another fucking history of money, and like those things are fantastic. They're absolutely necessary, but I think it's been done, and it's been done very well by people like whether it's Seyfedin or Gigi and all that sort of stuff. It's been done. This is a book on Bitcoin culture, Bitcoin excellence, and the future of what humanity looks like. It's more a book about the human spirit than it is about Bitcoin. So yeah, anyway, that's my rant.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm excited for this book to come out, and I will be pre-ordering it because I've been kind of on the same wave of just thinking of like, okay, who do I have to become to be worthy of holding the best money in the world and ushering that in a responsible way. And there's something about Bitcoin that really instills the entrepreneur spirit in you, and reflecting on yourself and like, wow, if we have the best money in the world and we're ushering in the best money in the world, then I might have to become better than I am currently. And it's about, whittling away from that marble and becoming the person that is worthy of holding these coins and ushering them into the future. And I think this is what the Bushido of Bitcoin's about. It's at least this is what it seems what you're saying. It's like there's a certain honor code of being an awesome Bitcoiner, and you have to, I don't know, become that person, not just talk about it and not just reflect on it. It's like, be that person. But anyways, we'll come back when the book drops again. We'll come back and we'll flesh this whole idea out. The next thing I want to talk about is this new project that I see you created, or you're part of, the Spirit of Satoshi. What is this? Bitcoin chat GBT? Like what exactly is the Spirit of Satoshi?
Pretty much, man. So I, sort of last year was when I did a lot of the research for the Bushido of Bitcoin, and kind of December, January, I wrote the bulk of the book. And then I was sitting around bored, honestly. I was like, what do I do with myself? And ChatGPT was all the rage, and I was like, okay, what's this stupidity? And I tried to get it to write for me, and I was like, man, this thing sucks. Like it's really bad. Like every time I asked it to like produce me, some bit of content, I was like, man, this is so cringe. Like it's verbose, it's too politically correct, it's too apologetic. I was like, well, I started writing a series of like essays about like how much of a scam and stupidity all this new AI stuff is, and particularly like fears about artificial general intelligence and all this sort of stuff. And I went and like I put my 1,000, 2,000 hours into going down this AI rabbit hole, and one of the articles, I haven't released this yet. I've got to actually finish writing this. It's called Midwit Obsolescence Technology. So I said, the funniest thing about ChatGPT and like all of these kind of like leftist liberals creating a chatbot is that they've basically just obsoleted all the journalists and all the midwits that write, your average run-of-the-mill blogs. Like those guys are all out of a job, and the people who can actually think for themselves, who've got a unique perspective that is outside of the Overton window, you're sweet. Like you don't have to worry about ChatGPT replacing you. But anyway, I I kind of asked myself, I was like, look, is it possible to build a model that can emulate not just the linguistic style, but a model of the world? Because you can tell ChatGPT, hey, can you answer this question in the tone and voice of Jordan Peterson, right? And it'll kind of like sound like him. It'll like give you a bit of his linguistic style, but it's never going to take on the model of the world, right? It'll never tell you that transgenderism is stupid, for example, or whatever opinion Peterson might have. So I set out to try and build a model of Peterson actually initially. And after a couple of months, we basically failed miserably because we were trying to do what a lot of people are doing at the moment is, when you hear people say, oh, we trained ChatGPT, they didn't train ChatGPT, they didn't do any of that. What they got was a corpus of work. They broke it up into chunks and they did what's called a vectorization. So they turned those paragraphs, those semantically coherent chunks of information into numbers, essentially, that a language model can read and reference, so that when you ask your new model a question, it will query the closest, the most relevant piece of data, the most relevant chunk of information into the answer. So it's kind of like abstracting away how you would prompt ChatGPT anyway. But all of these models are basically ChatGPT wrapped in some sort of information. And that was the first version that we did with Jordan Peterson. And like I said, it sucked. It's like it got some things nice, but as soon as you got to the more thorny questions, you would end up within the the boundaries or the constraints of what ChatGPT allowed. So anyway, we tried to then take the same sort of approach and build a Bitcoin one. And we built that out kind of like in March earlier this year. And we never released it because it was doing the same thing. As soon as you ask it questions like, hey, I want to diversify my crypto portfolio, what coins would you recommend? It started to spit out things like Ethereum, you should balance out with Dogecoin, but this is not financial advice, and all the kind of crap that you would expect from a mainstream language model. And there's a couple people who've done something similar. There's I think Chat BTC that came out the other day. They did something similar. It's ChatGPT underneath that is connected to a series of different vector databases, and it kind of talks like it queries those databases, but it's still ChatGPT beneath. There's I think there was one called Ask Satoshi or something like that. There's been a couple little ones, and what we decided to do about 3 or 4 months ago now is we said, all right, screw this. We want to build it from scratch. So we have been spending the last couple of months, and I'm actually going to do a call to action here to the listeners, but we've been spending the last couple of months basically collecting every bit of Bitcoin data ever created. Now, proper Bitcoin data. So every podcast, everything from Simply Bitcoin, every, Breed Love podcast and, my podcast, Swan Signal, whatever, like all of the good stuff, audio, video, every article, every book, all of the Austrian economic stuff, everything that's kind of like peripheral and related to Bitcoin. We've been cataloging everything. And to build a language model, you basically have to, first of all, catalog the whole world of data that you want to train the model on. Then you have to basically extract all that data so it's raw, and then you have to transform the data into different data formats. So like those chunks of data that I mentioned before, you also have to do question answer pairs. You have to do all sorts of different variations like long responses, short responses, finish this sentence, basically object to this FUD, like all this sort of different variations. And then you need to run that through, like, so you can do that in a partially programmatic way. And then you need to get a bunch of human cleaners. And, OpenAI did this by paying a bunch of, I don't know, Indians or whoever they paid $2 an hour to go in and clean their data. What we're doing is we've actually built a tool, which I'll give you the link to, but it's basically, if you go to spiritofsatoshi.ai, you can click on the button Help Train Satoshi. But this tool allows Bitcoiners to put their knowledge to use, where you can actually go in and help us validate whether data is relevant or irrelevant. So you can keep it, discard it, you can edit it, and you earn points along the way. and those points you redeem for sats. So we're basically, instead of like what OpenAI did, where they're just like, paying dollars, fiat shitcoins to people to do this, we're actually programmatically doing it with sats and getting the community engaged. We've got this cool little like consensus model, which is you have to be in consensus with the people who keep a piece of information, or the people who discard. If you do the opposite, you lose points. So that way everyone's kind of like converging towards a source of truth with particular bits of data. So anyway, once you get the data all through this pipeline, then you can actually train a model from scratch. And that's what we intend to do over the coming months, once we've got enough people helping us out with like getting a threshold of data cleaned up. And essentially the plan is to have a truly Bitcoin-oriented, Bitcoin-first, Austro-libertarian language model that can basically act as, I think it's going to become like a Bitcoin utility. So we're doing this all open source. It's all like a community project. I think it's going to become a tool, like an indispensable tool in orange pilling the next 100 million people or billion people or whatever, however many people are going to be asking the questions about Bitcoin in the coming decade. What is Bitcoin? Why Bitcoin? Why should I have it? How do I store it? Where do I buy it? Why is it better than Ethereum? And the million other questions that come down that rabbit hole. If we can really train a model to assist with that, I think we've got a huge tool in the fight against government misinformation, mainstream propaganda, shitcoin, misinformation, all the other crap that's out there. We'll have this like ray of light of a Bitcoin model that has been trained and built together with the Bitcoin community. The data's been curated with them, cleaned with them, produced with them, open source, so people can go in and adapt it to whatever they want with it. But that's essentially the plan. So, questions?
I absolutely love it. I think I've recently just got like ChatGPT, and you can tell that like there's some rough edges for lack of better words or lack of better descriptions. And I realized that there is something to the idea of a more focused, AI ChatGPT thing. And this Spirit of Satoshi, I think is a great process, but not necessarily on ChatGPT in general or Spirit of Satoshi. I want to get your thoughts on what's your ideas on the whole narrative about like AI taking over our jobs and being afraid of AI, because I don't think it's really that big of a concern, but it's funny to see like shitcoiners jump from a crypto fad to like AI now. It's a new fad.
Yeah,
and then also
so
like
cringe.
we saw Gary Gensler talk about regulating AI and all this concerns and stuff, and I think it's overhyped and blown out. And then so like what's your thoughts on AI and how is the future of humanity going to be using AI?
Yeah, so I wrote a series of articles on this, and this is sort of where my writing was in the last couple of months, where I just pointed out the thing about AGI, for example, artificial general intelligence, basically being a scam and a way to enact new regulation based on some new eschatological fear that kind of like climate change. It's like, oh, AGI is going to become sentient, all of a sudden it's going to kill us all, and we're all going to die. So guess what? We need our saviors. The same idiots who think they can block out the sun, to come and regulate what AI is going to do. Now, there's a lot to explain here. Maybe I can, give the audience like an article, like if they search for authentic intelligence, there's a Substack where I wrote some stuff for, and I go into trying to like dissect some of this. But basically, artificial general intelligence is a scam. Ain't happening anytime soon, if ever. The concept of general intelligence is just so vague, first of all. Like we don't even understand what cognitive narrow intelligence is yet. Like, because you've got body intelligence, muscle intelligence, skeletal intelligence, nerve intelligence, biological, chemical intelligence. Like you've got all these forms of intelligences that make up general intelligence in general. We can barely get fucking functional language done, which is like such a narrow form of intelligence, and we think that somehow we're going to get like a sentient being pop out of the computers tomorrow. Complete stupidity. Where the danger is, and I talked about this on stage at BTC Prague, is I said there is actually a new modality out of this so-called artificial intelligence stuff, the language user interface. It's this idea that, we went from like kind of finding things on the internet to like using Google search to having algorithms, feed us information. I looks like the next genesis is going to be, you won't look for anything anymore. You won't ask Google to search for something. You'll just ask a model and it'll produce the answer for you. And what happens with that is that your model of the world, remember, like, it's kind of like a Plato's cave situation. It's like, the shadows. It's like your model of the world becomes what the model tells you. And most people don't go past like the first 3 results on a Google search. What makes you think they will go beyond the first answer that the language model tells them to a question? It's not going to happen. So if that's the case, if that becomes the window through which everybody, interacts with the world or interprets information, if that becomes the case, and that window is regulated by some monkeys, like, the World Economic Forum or whichever, stupid, fantasy superhero ensemble wants to regulate AI, the way we get information from the internet will become a function of what they perceive as safe, right? They will say this is safe, this is allowed, this is kosher, this is acceptable discourse, and I think that's where the quote unquote danger lies, and this is why it's imperative for us to build alternatives, and this is what Spirit of Satoshi is essentially doing. This is sort of like, if you ask me what's the mission behind this, beyond just being a potential tool that can help orange pill many people at scale. This is an attempt to build an alternative, because maybe, our model does more than just orange pill people. Maybe it helps them, sovereign pill, or family pill, or homeschool pill, or something like that. It's a parallel technology or a parallel system, much the same way as Bitcoin is a parallel money. Like, we've all been LARPing about sovereignty for how long now? It's, we've got to build these sovereign tools, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with this. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think AGI is a scam. AI stuff is overblown. The reality is that language models are probably going to become the new interface. The danger of that interface being captured is real. So we need to build alternatives so that we have a way to still have dissenting discourse without all of it being regulated, basically.
No, I think that was a great viewpoint on what's going on right now, and very interesting. And I think moving forward, it's going to be very interesting to see how humans, coexist with these new technologies, and really how people react to these technologies. And it's something we always say here on the show is, shouts out to you and all the other Bitcoin entrepreneurs out there that are building the freedom tools that will usher in the world that we think is coming, and that we think has basically been stolen from us, as the theme of this show is stop building castles made of sand and build on something that will last, and build the technologies that will actually propel humanity towards a better future. So, Svetsky, always a pleasure having you on. But let's get into the meme review, because everyone watches the whole show just to get to the memes. Here we go.
The Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Kaboomracks. I get this question all the time. Nico, where should I buy Bitcoin miners? The answer is Kaboomracks. It's the best place to buy Bitcoin miners. That's where you're going to find the best deals and the best prices. Start your mining utopia today. To check out their racks, you got to go to t.me/Kaboomracks. Join their Telegram group and start your mining journey today. Kaboomracks.
Kaboomracks. All right, guys, you already know the deal. This is the meme review where you guys tag us in memes on Twitter at simplybitcointv on Twitter, or drop them in our Telegram group. You guys are starting to drop them in our Telegram group, t.me/simplybitcoin. I will scroll the interwebs and I will pull your memes up, or tag me, Optimus Fields, on Twitter. Whatever you guys want to do, I will find the memes for you guys and bring them on the show. Also, drop your meme review score in the chat once we get done with this, and we will review it live. Anyways, this first one is by Paul, aka Birds Are Not Real 2 on Twitter. And he goes, just a reminder. And we got a play on Paul Revere here, but it's got Yellow's face on here. You know, we got a little Malacca over here. Malacca. The dip will continue until morale improves. I think morale improved a little bit because I think the price kind of had a little hump this morning. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, this next meme is by Chairforce_BTC. Shouts out to Chairforce. And he goes, maybe tomorrow. And we got a guy here headed to work and he's drained and he's about to shed a tear. And he goes, me driving to my stupid ass job because the fiat Ponzi hasn't collapsed yet. I know this is what you guys feel constantly. Hence why you stack so many sats. Anyways, this next meme is by the BTC therapist. And he goes, Bitcoin is freedom. And we got a Chad miner over here. And he goes, then I work 16 hours a day in a coal mine to provide for my family. And now we got a Chad Bitcoin. He goes, now I buy Bitcoin so my children are not slaves. This is the way. Okay, this next one is by Alina Sisha. And she goes, maybe later. So here's a little hodler comic. And we got a person here. We got a Bitcoiner and a pre-coiner, or rather a no-coiner. And the no-coiner goes, so what's this Bitcoin thing about then? And the little hodler goes, it's the biggest revolution since the internet. And the no-coiner goes, I like the internet. And then he asks, I have money problems. And the little hodler goes, yeah, it fixes the problems with our money. And the no-coiner goes, that sounds great. I want some Bitcoin. And then the little hodler goes, okay, so you really just need to find the right wallet and a place to buy. And the guy goes, wait, that sounds like a lot of work. Maybe later. It's amazing how people can hit on the problem, and then when you ask them to do a little more work, they're like, this is too hard. I'm going to just stay poor. I'm going to have fun staying poor. And, you know, you guys have fun with your Bitcoin. Man, it's so simple. Anyone can do it. I am convinced of this. Okay, this next one is by the Having Parting MF on Twitter, and he goes, Bitcoin is the separation of money and state. And we got the Steven Crowder meme here, but it's got Dorian Nakamoto's face on it. And it goes, the people who want to ban Bitcoin are the same people Bitcoin protects you from. Change my mind. I think we said this in the beginning of the show. Now, this next meme is by Steve Barber. Shouts out to him. And he goes, all you need to do to make Bitcoin go to $1 million plus, and it's just the Bitcoin accepted here sticker, guys. Accept Bitcoin for your services, for your goods. Continue to propagate the memes. Continue to get people to download Bitcoin wallets and save in Bitcoin. This is the way. This next meme and last meme is by HottoCat21, and he goes, it's always time. And we got a person here, and he's looking at his watch. He goes, I wonder what time it is. And his watch is the Bitcoin logo. And then he's got laser eyes, and he goes, it's time to stack more sats. This is the way, guys. You continue to stack. Don't take your foot off the gas right now. Now is not the time to not stack sats as we move into this coming bull run that we are all just waiting for. Anyways, drop your meme review score in the chat as we cover ours live. Okay, mine is, I told you yesterday I had my yellow little plushie, but I am a huge fan of the bag it came in. So the meme factory does not exist. Cotton little bag. That's my meme score. Shouts out to World of Rusty. Go get one at worldofrusty.com. Anyways, Svetsky, what's your meme review score?
Mine's a little Bitcoin case with I think it's one of those bolt. Oh shit, there's stuff in it. Those lightning rings. I think it's from Bold or Bolt.
Oh, the NFC ones.
Yeah, the NFC one.
The tap ones. Okay.
Yeah, someone did that. Anyway, that's my score. There you go.
Wow. Have you loaded it up with sats yet?
No, it's just been sitting there.
Okay. Well, great score. All right. I honestly, I thought that was like a Bitcoin grinder, but it's better. It's a Bitcoin NFC ring tap. All right, guys, we got a few scores in here. Let's cover them. First one, the P-Man Van. He goes, I give these memes a Richard Hart pant-splitting twerk for SPF and jail. Yo, do not plant those pictures in our minds. Okay, this next one is by Ray.
See that.
This next meme score is by Ray Elevator. He goes, I score the memes. The 50K gang members Bitcoin helped cleaned up in El Salvador. Bitcoin fixed that. Let's go. Okay. The next one is by Apollo 21. I'm guessing this is in Japanese. I don't know. He goes, I give the meme Svetsky's secret samurai helmet bearing the seal of Bitcoin. Okay, not so secret anymore. All right, this next one, UTXO. He goes, my meme review score is a master's degree in etymology. Okay, let's go. They really like the etymology. Okay,
nice.
one is what is it? The POC goes score. The shipping notice I just received during the show for a cold card I bought with BTC. All right, let's go. All right, OptiFields, yum. I like the taste of spicy people. Spicy. You guys know the NPCs out there. Anyway, score. A yellow plushie returned after being used by Rope. Ouch, Rope. Okay, let's go. Planet Earth. We got a few more in here, and we'll call it a day. Planet Earth. Score these memes. A Bushido quote. It is good to face challenges in your youth. He who has never suffered will not sufficiently temper his character. Yamamoto Tsunemoto. Sorry, I butchered your name, but yes, highly agree. Yes. Okay. McLovin, meme score, sell chairs, stack harder. Yes. Okay. Couple more. Narwhal tacos, meme score, my fix the money, fix the world stamp that I use on all the fiat I spend. Actually, funny story. I had one of those Bitcoin stamps and I stamped like a bunch of $100 bills. And I did it at the like where the face is on the dollar bills, the blue ones, there's like a face in it, so it's not a counterfeit. I did it right on the face, and like no ATM would take it, and I was like, oh shit, like wrecked myself. But hey, we propagated the memes by just like going to stores, like, hey, here's $100 bill. But yeah, don't cover the face with the stamp, guys. Okay, this next one is by Elaine. She goes, score Bitcoin in dictionary 2030, one BTC, the currency that set humanity free. Absolutely love it. All right, guys. That is the meme review. Hold on. Actually, we didn't run out of them. The buzzer. Okay. Anyways, guys, you already know the deal. It's the end of the show. Really appreciate every single one of you guys. But Svetsky, let the people know where you're at. I will bring up your Twitter right here, but what do you want the people to look out for? When can they expect some of these writings, and where are you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so I've come out of hiding and hibernation, so there'll be a bunch of new essays coming out soon. But the big one, and this is the call to the Bitcoin community, is come help us build Spirit of Satoshi. Get in there, jump in, like, seriously, like the tool that we built for like training and cleaning the data and stuff like that. If you've got all this Bitcoin knowledge sitting in your head, you can actually, it's like a faucet. You can actually earn some Bitcoin. You can earn some sats. Like it's a proof of work in some sense. It's like you've got all this knowledge in your head. Come help us clean up this data. Come help us, create and curate some of this data. Go to spiritoftosatoshi.ai. Get in there. We've got a little kind of like a acceptance form, because we want to try and keep the shitcoiners out. So there's a couple like Bitcoin trick questions in there. If you answer the wrong one, it's like, what's this? There's one in there. It's like, what's the second best crypto? It's fucking hilarious. Like some people actually write Ethereum. That is the wrong answer. So anyway, that's how we like make sure the right people come into the community and help us train the models. So get in there, spiritoftosatoshi.ai, click on help train the model. You can also check out the Nakamoto repository. So that's in there as well. It's got like everything that we've collected to date. There's like 10,000 links in there of articles, videos, books, YouTube shows, podcasts, everything in there. So anything you want to find is in there. But help us build this thing. I think it's going to be a super unique tool. And hopefully in the next couple of months, when the model's ready, we'll spin up like a Telegram bot as well. Sorry, not a Telegram bot, like a Twitter persona out of it. And maybe bring Satoshi actually on a fucking show with you guys, because we're going to give him a voice. So
that'd be oh yeah, oh wow, that'd be awesome. Wow, that'd be interesting. All right, last question. This one's more personal. When are we going to get this Bushido of Bitcoin book? I'm going to pressure you now, bro. Give us an ETA.
Let's put the pressure on Bitcoin Magazine, because they're the ones editing and publishing it. So they'll have it from me by this weekend. So if they can move their asses, I'm hoping it'll be ready for Amsterdam. If not, definitely before Christmas.
Okay. All right, Mark, I know you watch the show. Joe and Mark, we need to get this book out ASAP. Let's go. All right, Svetsky, we'll really appreciate you coming on. I think you not only had great takes on today's show, but I'm pretty sure you expanded the people's minds in the chat. I could see them talking about this. So let's bring you back on maybe when the book releases, and we'll continue this conversation and continue to blow minds. So keep doing the work. Keep doing Satoshi's work, Svetsky, and we'll see you on the interwebs, bro. Let me put you behind the scenes for a moment as I roll this one out and tell everyone. You guys already know the deal, man. We will be back tomorrow, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. We will be in Twitter Spaces. Appreciate everyone that shows up. Also, like, subscribe, share, comment, share all Bitcoin content. It's about orange pilling the world. It's about waking people up to all the ideas that we know and love. It's really about planning and incepting these ideas so more people wake up to not only the facade that we find ourselves in, but to get them freedom money so that they can help themselves by stacking sats. Anyways, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. This is your boy Opti. Later.